What is up, everybody? Welcome back. So today we're going to talk about the new episode of The Bachelorette, which was not an actual episode. It was the Men Tell All. And child, we might as well have skipped over this, gone straight to the finale, because this was a waste of my time. And it was 2 hours. I wish they would have broken it down to 1 hour, maybe even 30 minutes. But I do think it was interesting that right off the bat, they first asked John how he felt stepping out of the limo that night. Throughout this entire Men Tell All, John was definitely one of the guys they kept mentioning. So it makes me wonder if he's going to be the next Bachelor maybe, but we'll see. What we then get is a long rundown of the season thus far, some special moments from all the guys who had them with Charity, and the drama, of course. So in other words, a rundown of multiple men talking bad about Brayden multiple times. How he left, how he came back to say goodbye to Charity, and then once they're talking about it, Sean begins by telling Brayden that he's a manipulator and that he did what he wanted to do with Charity, and Brayden claps back and says, you know, you're coming at me for having doubts and saying that I was a manipulator, but you had doubts as well. Sean says that his doubts were not about Charity. It was about him not being chosen. Then somebody asks, why did Brayden come back to say goodbye when he had already been sent home? And he says that it was because he needed to say goodbye in a right way, like formally. And do you guys remember when there was a group day where the guys were competing for the longest makeout to beat the record, and Brayden told the guys that it must have sucked for them to be standing there like simps just watching it. He didn't want to hear about it. Well, they bring that up and they were all pouncing on Brayden. And there's one thing about me that I do not like, is when a person is being ganged up on. Even if they're in the wrong or if they're in the right, I really don't care. I just don't like seeing a group of people beat down one person. It doesn't sit well with me. Adrian, who spent his time this entire season just snitching to Charity about what Brayden was doing, this whole, like, that's the only thing we saw when he was on the screen. He goes after Brayden, says that he lied because he never was there for the right intentions. But then Brayden says, wait a minute, you lied because you told Charity that I called her classless, and I never did that. And all of the men, and even the dumbass audience that was there, was saying that Brayden did call Charity classless. But then they put a disclaimer on the screen saying that there was no footage or audio found where Brayden called her classless. And if that footage existed, you better bet they would have used it. So he was vindicated in that way. Then Tanner gets into it with Brayden. I mean, really, Tanner, you had like 3 lines and now you want to show up. And Brayden says he didn't even know that most of the men had an issue with him unless Charity told him about it, like someone mentioned it, or when he was seeing back the episodes. Then Sean, aka Prince Charming from Shrek, says he was so happy when Brayden left because the energy changed. But you were still sent home, dude. Then some guy named James, who I do not remember, but he says that he has a problem with Sean for being dirty and taking her when I guess it was some sort of challenge and he won and he had already had time with her and then he pulled her again. I mean, a lot of this stuff really doesn't even matter at this point. But dang, y'all, this is interesting. There's a guy named Peter who I've never seen because he left the first night. But apparently when he left, some of the guys were posting some pictures on social media where they were putting the initials FP, which meant F-U-C-K, Peter. Now, Peter didn't know about this until Brayden told him what these guys were up to and what the meaning of those initials were. And, you know, they kind of have to fess up. And Xavier says that, you know, it was an inside joke. No one would have known if it wasn't for Brayden who had to go tell him. So how are you going to turn this around to him when y'all were doing this to this poor man? Like, Brayden is the one who let him know what was going on. They actually show some of those posts that they were publishing on their social media, and it didn't look like a little joke, if you ask me. Xavier the cheater had no other option but to apologize, and some of the men were like calling the poor Peter guy like, you're fake or whatever. Like, come on, I've never been more disgusted by what are supposed to be grown men who met this man for one night and decided to bully him behind his back. Shame on them. Y'all are like a joke of men, like, honestly. Then Jesse brings Brayden to the couch, to the hot seat up in there with him in the little stage where he was on. At this point, I've had enough with Brayden, like it was a little bit too much. But they begin to show his journey with Charity. And not for nothing, Charity definitely liked him. We gotta admit that. They had great moments, you know, once we see them all being put together. And of course it shows the downfall of his time there. He then says it's sad knowing that she actually felt something for him and that it didn't lead to anything, you know. But he definitely had his reservations of getting down on one knee. He explains why he came back to say goodbye to her. He says he never intended on interrupting anyone's time, but if he did, he doesn't care. You know, he's owning it. Jesse says that he's never seen a group of men chase down another man to a bus. He asks, like, what were you going to do in that moment? And Brayden says, to be honest, I was ready to beat him up. And then he's talking about Aaron, who Aaron was not there because, again, he's over there. We last left him in Fiji when he went to go surprise Charity. But why was he rubbing people the wrong way? Jesse asks, and Brayden says, I don't know, I'm not a traditional guy, and I might come off as arrogant and cocky to some, but it is what it is. Then they joke around a little bit about his style, you know, his crazy earrings and the scarf, and he actually brought some clip-on earrings for Jesse, and he put them on. It was hilarious. Jesse says, well, man, whether you get under some people's skin and you get them angry or not, you were for sure your authentic self. So props to that. And you were taking that to the beaches of paradise. I mean, I knew it. I knew he was going to be in paradise. And they showed us a sneak peek of him on paradise. And he's going to have a thing with none other than Kat from Zach's season. I cannot wait for Bachelor in Paradise. It is for sure my favorite Bachelor Nation show. But let's move on because it's time for Xavier to come up to the stage. We go through his journey. Let's not forget it was last week when he was sent home, so he's had a very long journey with Charity. He did tell her that he was falling in love with her when they were at hometowns. They showed that disastrous scene where he admitted that he had cheated on his girlfriend multiple times and that it would be hard for him to know if he could commit to Charity and that he needed to see more of Charity to come up with that conclusion. I mean, the audacity of that. He then explains why he did what he did. He says he expected to hear, you know, I'm falling in love with you when he said it to her in hometowns. He says he really liked her. He says he had to go to therapy afterwards to better himself. And then it's time to bring Charity out. Charity comes out. She and Brayden have a quick talk. There's definitely no bad blood in between them. I think they both mutually respect each other, so that's nice. Sean is about to talk to her, and then he goes up and sits on the hot seat, even though no one asked him to. Like, it just shows you how attention-seeking he is. And then he gives Charity, you know, like, you were the best Bachelorette. You made us better men. You gave us such amazing time. And don't get me wrong, what he said was great, but you know when someone is saying something just to make themselves look good and like, ugh. And then Jesse was like, get out of this stage. Nobody asked you. That was funny. Tanner says something, and then John, again, does ask her, what was it about me that you didn't like? You sent me home. She says that he was a great guy, but maybe it was just a timing thing. Sometimes there just really isn't an answer. If it's not there, it's not there, you know? And then to the one that we really care about was Xavier. So he goes up there, and Charity says that she never felt that he was ready to get on one knee. He's in the hot seat, and this is the first time they're talking since he left Fiji, so that's interesting. The first thing he does is he says he denounces cheating, that it's wrong. Yeah, we know that. She then puts him in his place for the things that he said. And why would he say, I love you, when she sent him home and he was getting on that car? He says that he wanted her to know because he did love her at that point. But she's being real. She says, what was I supposed to do with a conversation of you saying, I'm not ready for commitment, I've cheated, I'll try not to cheat. He says that in the future he wants to be a man who is faithful to his wife. After being asked how he feels now, he says that he still has some feelings for her and says that he gets emotional thinking about it, which I do believe that. He then gets up and leaves the stage because he says that he has something that he needs to go get, and he gives her a rose that's like made out of yarn, like he knitted it, which is kind of cool, not gonna lie. But they do wish each other the best, and the chapter between them is definitely close. And then they just show extra footage of funny times, like that we didn't get to see, like for example when they dressed up as Kens, or when they played dodgeball, some bloopers, and when everybody was just having fun, you know, just to have some humor. They even bring that boat captain when Charity had that 2-on-1 date with Tanner and Sean. Remember, she didn't give a rose to anyone that day. So they asked the captain, who would you give the rose to? And he gives it to Sean. It was funny. Then, because this is the big 20th season, they bring out some former bachelorettes. I didn't know any of them because they were from the beginning seasons. Because, wait a minute, I'm 20 years old, and this is season 20. So, damn, this show began when I was born in 2003. That's crazy. They show some footage of these original women there, and I don't know, maybe if it's because like the footage just feels old or what it is, but the people there just seem more genuine to the actual show. And that first bachelorette, the first bachelorette ever, she actually had the wedding on that season, which like that's amazing. And she is still with her husband, and they have kids, which is amazing. Jesse asks Charity if she has any questions for them, so Charity asks for some advice, and they give it to her. They say, be big on forgiveness. Prioritize the relationship first over everything. It was a great moment. These are the type of people who need to be giving advice to others. Like people who have been actually married for over 20 years. That's who I want to hear from. They also give Charity her flowers for doing an amazing job this season. Then we move on to a formal introduction to the new Golden Bachelor. He is 71 years old. He was happily married for 40 years. He has 2 daughters. And then they have 2 granddaughters, and it's such a sad moment watching him explain the death of his wife who he was married to for so long. It was really, really sad. Then they bring him out to the studio audience. He interacts with Jesse. He talks to the guys briefly. He definitely seems like a great guy to be the Golden Bachelor. And that's what we got for the Men Tell All. So again, it wasn't horrible, but it wasn't worth 2 hours of my Monday evening. But it is what it is. I'm ready for next week because it is the grand finale. Charity has to choose between Dotun and Joey. I'm not even going to put Aaron because I know she's not going to choose him. But we'll see what happens. This is going to be a very interesting finale because when it comes to Joey or Dotun, honestly, I think either one would be awesome for her. So we'll see what happens, you guys. Please let me know what were your thoughts about the Men Tell All. Do you think it was also lacking, and any moments that stood out to you? Let me know, guys. Please don't forget to like and subscribe, and I'll catch y'all next time. Y'all have a great one. Bye.